Have you seen the stock market today? The Dow down 1,500 points, or about 3.5%. The NASDAQ down 850 points, or nearly 5%. And it's waffling back and forth a little bit above, a little bit below. But this represents nearly $2 trillion in lost wealth in one day. Congratulations, Mr. President. You're doing a great job. Well, I'm going to do another video later today where I'll go more into why these tariffs don't make sense, but I think we all know they don't. They literally don't make sense on any level. In fact, the president himself can't even really articulate why he's doing it. He's all over the place. They make no economic sense at all. He wants to stop fentanyl. He wants to punish nations for robbing us and stealing from us. It doesn't make any sense. But what he doesn't seem to know, and what his voters didn't seem to realize, is tariffs always hurt the country that places them more than they hurt anyone else. And we're just starting to see the first signs of this. Stellantis announced today that it's going to temporarily close factories in Mexico and Canada, which will result in the layoffs of 900 U.S. workers. Now, here's something a little too complicated for the president to take in, I think, because his attention span is so short. But the way free trade works in the North American region, as you know, it actually works this way everywhere. But the way it works specifically between Canada and Mexico and the US is Stellantis, in this example, has a plant in Mexico that makes powertrains. And once the powertrain is made, they ship it to a plant in the US, I think in Michigan, where they stamp it. I'm not sure what that means, but it's a stamping plant. Anyway, they ship it to the US to have something done to it, and the stamping plant hires 900 workers to do this job, whatever it is. But 900 workers are now going to be laid off next week by Stellantis. It was announced today. So, but anyone who was paying attention could have foreseen all of this. And many of us foresaw exactly this. Project 2025 that everybody wanted to ignore, it talks about tariffs and it urges their implementation. And President Trump is following Project 2025 to a T. Project 2025 said that tariffs are needed to address trade imbalances and protect domestic industries by implementing reciprocal tariffs against countries with perceived unfair trade practices. And that's exactly what Trump has been saying. That's why he enacted the reciprocal tariffs yesterday. But, you know, as Christians, one thing we have to remember, our our true hope is in Christ. And it's not in Christ plus politics. It's not in Christ plus the economy. It's not in Christ plus what the president may do. It's in Christ alone, our true hope, our spiritual hope, and our worldly hope. It's in Christ alone. We know God is sovereign. Whatever bad times may be coming for us, nothing happens that God doesn't ordain and allow. So if bad times come for us, we know from his word that he tells us that's for our own good and it's for his glory. So we should rejoice in it, whatever happens, we lose everything, we don't lose everything, whatever happens, whether God decides to protect us from, whatever disaster is coming in this economy, we will consider that a great blessing. But if he decides to let us go through it and suffer along with everybody else, we should also consider that a great blessing and know that it is he who holds us and our lives aren't dependent on what's going on in the political world. Okay? But with that said, that doesn't mean we should bury our heads in the sand and be oblivious to what's going on around us. And that's why I wanted to read something to you that a friend on Facebook, Lucy, who always finds great content, sent me this morning. It's from Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut, and he posted something very insightful on Blue Sky today. I want to read it to you and make a couple of comments on it. But he started off, he said and I'm just going to read it from my screen, so forgive me if I don't look at you while I'm doing this, but those trying to understand the tariffs as economic policy are dangerously naive. No, the tariffs are a tool to collapse our democracy as a means to compel loyalty from every business that will need to petition Trump for relief. I I see what he's saying, and I agree with most of it, but there's one little portion where I have a slight disagreement. Not that it will make any difference in the end, but I'll tell you what it is when we get to it. Anyway, this is very insightful. He's very well aware of history and how things like this take place. This week, you will read many confused economists and political pundits who don't understand how the tariffs make economic sense, and that's because they don't. They aren't designed as economic policy. The tariffs are simply a new, super dangerous political tool. Okay? You see, our founders created a president with limited and checked powers. They specifically put the power of spending and taxation in the hands of the legislature. Why? Because they watched how kings and despots used spending and taxes to control their subjects. Sorry, this screen is really far away, and my eyesight's not that great, so I got to squint a little bit. Anyway, British kings used taxation to reward loyalty and punish dissent. Our own revolution was spurred by the king's use of heavy taxation of the colonies to punish our own push for self-governance. The king's message to us was simple: stop protesting and I'll stop taxing. Well, it doesn't take a genius to see that that could be what's coming here. Now, here's where I slightly disagree. He says Trump knows that he can weaken and maybe destroy democracy by using spending and taxation in the same way. He's using uh, access to government funds to bully universities, law firms, and state and local governments into loyalty pledges. The only thing I take a bit of an issue with him on is where he says Trump knows. I find it hard to believe that Trump knows. I find it hard to believe he doesn't know anything about history. He doesn't know anything about political ideologies or political systems. I don't think he knows any of this stuff. He's just, this is who he is and this is what he does, right? And one thing I find really hard to believe is that he's planned anything more than 5 minutes ahead of time. He knows nothing about strategy. This is not a guy who strategizes. He flies by the seat of his pants. That's why he's all over the place all the time. So he says he knows he can weaken democracy. I don't even think his plan is to weaken democracy. I think his plan is just to be as powerful as he can be. I don't think he thinks it through even enough to go through this process of saying, if I want to be as strong as I can be, I have to weaken democracy. I think he sees one thing at a time. He sees the courts. Now they're hindering him from doing what he wants, so he starts attacking them. He sees universities. He could get some political, gain some political ground among the MAGA base if he clamps down on universities and punishes them for not supporting Israel strongly enough. I think he just sees things one at a time as they come. But that doesn't mean it won't go in this direction anyway. So planned or unplanned, when you have a man like that as president who has those innate instincts, is that redundant? Innate instincts? Anyway, who has those instincts, it could lead to this anyway. And one reason I couldn't vote for him in 2020 or 2024 is because I saw that he would go in exactly this direction. Whether he knew it or not, I don't know. But I saw, and many of us saw, that he would go in exactly this direction. All right, let's continue because this is really good. Number 6, Murphy says, healthy democracies rely on an independent legal profession to maintain the rule of law, independent universities to guard objective truth and provide forums for dissent to authority, and independent state and local governments to counterbalance a powerful federal government. Okay, that's true. But the private sector also plays a role. I think he had a little typo there. The private sector also plays a role in protecting democracy. Independent industry has power. That's right. Now, and what's interesting, he's going to tell us in a minute what that power is and how useful it could be to the president. The tariffs are Trump's tool to erode that independence, the independence of business. Now, one by one, every industry or company will need to pledge loyalty to Trump in order to get sanctions relief. Okay, this is where it gets scary. And this is where I totally see Trump doing this, whether he planned it ahead of time or not. This is just who he is, and this is what he'll do. What could Trump demand as part of a quiet loyalty pledge? Here's the scary part. He could demand of businesses and business leaders public shows of support from executives for all his economic policies, contributions to his political efforts, and promises to police employees' support for his political opposition. That's scary stuff. Really scary stuff. That's the real insight right there. I think I'll give that a like. The tariffs are designed to create economic hardship. See, I don't think they're designed to create economic hardship. I don't even think Trump knew that this would happen. I literally don't think he's aware enough of economic issues to have even foreseen that this would happen. I think he's taken quite aback by it. Maybe not. Maybe he knew. I don't know. But Murphy says the tariffs are designed to create economic hardship. Why? So that Trump has a straight face rationale for releasing them, business by business or industry by industry, as everyone collapses and does what the president wants. As he adjusts and grants relief, in other words, he removes the tariffs, it's a win-win because the economy improves and dissent disappears. Wow. And let's see what he says in the last one. And once Trump has lawyers, colleges, and industry under his thumb, yeah, right, this is right, it becomes very hard for the opposition to have any viable space to maneuver. Trump didn't invent this strategy. It's the playbook for democratically elected leaders who want to stay in power forever. That's right. That's exactly right. Whether or not that will happen remains to be seen. We never know what's going to happen, but that is certainly the direction things could go in. It's the direction it looks like things are going in for sure. Like we're on a freight train to that end goal. And it's pretty scary stuff. If you know history and you've seen how all these authoritarian regimes eventually take power, this is really scary stuff. And, it's not just that an authoritarian will, take power and tell us to do things we may not want to do, but it's that the economy will go down. Hungary, who they love to adore, is under an authoritarian regime, just like Trump. It's what Trump is trying to mimic, and it is now the poorest country in the European Union. It used to be one of the wealthiest. It was in the top three. Now it's at the bottom. And why? Because that's what authoritarianism always leads to. Always. So that's what we're looking at. The only hope I see in a worldly sense outside of Christ and our spiritual hope, our true hope, the only worldly hope I see is that people rise up, that they badger their Republican representatives so badly that the Republican representatives get scared that they're not going to win the next primary. When they get calls, thousands of calls a week, more than they used to get, and this goes on for an extended period of time, several months, then they know their voters are very, very upset. And that's the only thing that will cause them to withdraw some of their support for this president. Because their support up until now has been based on the fact that they believe Trump would, win elections for them, bring them to victory and keep them from being primaried. Their only reason for being loyal to Trump is because they believe he brings them votes. And up until now, he has. They're in touch with their constituents. They know, believe me, representatives know their people better than anybody. That's the one thing they do well. They keep their hands on the pulse of the people. They know what their voters are thinking, intimately. You talk to any congressman, he can tell you which parts of his district have people who are a little bit against him. They know, believe me, they know. And when they start to see that Trump is not going to carry this anymore, in fact, their voters are getting so angry that it becomes apparent to them that they can't win the next election if they continue their support, you're going to see that support crumble. And that's really, really what we need. That's the only guardrail left after the courts, and the courts are doing their job. But, you know, an authoritarian president doesn't have to obey court rulings. What's the court going to do? Send the military out after him? No. The president controls the military, not the courts. So in the end, he who has the physical power has all the power in an authoritarian regime, which is what we're headed to, which is what this president wants. Well, I hope I haven't thoroughly depressed you, and but we got to be aware of these things that are going on. So, if you got any insights from this today that you appreciate, I'd appreciate a like. And if you'd like to hear more, subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.